What if I told you that one of hip-hop's most respected OGs built a multi-million-dollar empire, not just off music, but off the deaths and incarcerations of young rappers? We're talking about Gucci Mane and his 1017 label, a label that's seen more artists end up dead or behind bars than on the Billboard charts. And homie, the numbers don't lie. In the last 4 years alone, 1017 has lost 2 artists to drug overdoses, Big Scar and Enchanting. Multiple artists have been locked up serving sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. That's Fugiano, Hot Boy Wes, Hoodrich Pablo Juan, and Mac Critter. Pooh Shiesty just got out after serving over 3 years. Another artist, Lil Rai, got stripped and robbed on camera in an Atlanta mall, and this ain't even counting the original Brick Squad era where Slim Duncan got murdered in a studio, OJ Juiceman caught multiple cases, and Frenchie got hit with 12 years for a home invasion. But here's where it gets real suspicious. Industry insiders have been whispering about something called Keyman insurance or dead peasant policies, life insurance policies that record labels take out on their artists. When that artist dies, the label collects. We're talking millions of dollars. And when you look at Gucci Mane's pattern of specifically targeting young, violent street rappers with extensive criminal histories, giving them just enough money to stay dangerous but not enough to truly escape the streets, then watching as they predictably crash out, you start to see a business model that's more calculated than coincidental. Today we're breaking down the whole operation, how Gucci Mane positioned himself as a savior to street rappers while potentially profiting from their demise, how he'd sign these young crash-outs, blow them up just enough to make them valuable, then sit back and collect when they inevitably ended up dead or locked up. We're gonna expose the insurance policies, the pattern of signing violent offenders, the suspicious timing of dropped artists, and why Gucci Mane completely dissolved 1017 and started fresh when people started catching on. This is some deep type shit, and if you leave before the end, you're gonna miss the most disturbing part about how this whole scheme allegedly worked. So let me break it down for you. This is the untold story of how Gucci Mane turned the 1017 curse into a multi-million-dollar cash cow. Before we get into the conspiracy, you gotta understand how the music industry really works. See, most people think labels make money just off album sales and streaming, but for real, that's just the surface level. The real money in the industry comes from touring, merchandise, publishing rights, and yeah, insurance policies. Here's how it works, homie. When a label signs an artist, especially one they're investing heavy money into, they take out what's called Keyman insurance. It's the same type of policy corporations take out on their executives. The idea is simple. If something happens to this person who's making us money, we need to be protected financially. In the corporate world, it makes sense. But in hip-hop, when you're signing known gang members with multiple felonies and a lifestyle that screams, "I'm not gonna make it to 30, that's when it starts looking less like protection and more like a calculated investment strategy. And Gucci Mane? He's been in the game long enough to know exactly how it works. Homie did time himself, came home in 2016 looking completely different, physically and mentally transformed. He married Keisha Kaoir, got his money right, and started moving like a legitimate businessman. But here's the thing, Gucci Mane knows the streets better than almost anyone. He knows what happens when you give a young street dude $100,000 and a little bit of fame. He knows they're gonna buy drugs, flash money, keep the same dangerous homies around, and eventually crash out. He's seen it 1,000 times. He lived it himself. So when Gucci Mane started the new 1017 in 2020 and specifically targeted the most violent, most reckless young rappers from Memphis, Atlanta, and other hot spots, when he passed over more stable artists to sign dudes with active murder cases and gang affiliations, that wasn't an accident, that was a business model. Let's look at the pattern. When Gucci Mane relaunched 1017 as the new 1017 in 2020, he didn't sign regular up-and-coming rappers trying to make it out. Nah, homie went straight for the crash outs. And I mean the most reckless, most dangerous young dudes in the game. First up was Fugiano from Georgia. Now Fugiano already had a history, burglary charges, robbery charges. He'd done time before, but Gucci Mane saw something in him and signed him anyway. Just a few months after signing, Fugiano was involved in a wild shootout at one of his own shows. 8 people got hit, 2 died. Fugiano didn't catch a murder charge, but his homie got 50 years. Then, while out on bond for a gun charge, Fugiano burned off his ankle monitor and went on the run like he was Tay K or something. They caught him, and now he's doing 5 years. That's one artist down. Then you got Pooh Shiesty, probably the biggest name Gucci Mane signed to the new label. Shorty was on fire for real. Back in Blood was everywhere. He was getting cosigns from Lil Baby and Lil Durk, and it looked like he was about to take over the whole game. But just like Gucci Mane probably predicted, Pooh Shiesty couldn't leave the streets alone. Homie pulled up to a hotel parking lot right across from a police station, mind you, to buy some drugs and sneakers. But instead of just buying them, he pulled out a Draco and robbed the dudes, shooting one of them in the process. This is a dude who had just signed a major deal and was making real money, but he still felt the need to rob somebody over some shoes and drugs. That's crash out behavior. Pooh Shiesty took a plea deal and got 5 years, but he just got released in 2025 after serving a little over 3 years. That's 2 artists who crashed out. Hot Boy Wes from Texas, this dude's story is even crazier. Wes had already done 7 years for gang activity before Gucci Mane signed him. Gucci Mane even gave him a Rolex as a signing gift. You know what Hot Boy Wes did? He sold the watch for $9,000. Then when the buyer showed up with the money, Wes took the cash and tried to keep the watch too. He literally robbed the dude who was buying his Rolex, hitting him with the car door as he drove away. But that wasn't even his worst case. Turns out Wes had tried to run his baby mama's car into a cement barrier with their kids inside. Homie got hit with assault, family violence, robbery, and a bunch of other charges. The judge gave him 15 years. That's 3 artists down. Fugiano, 5 years. Pooh Shiesty served over 3 years and just got out. Hot Boy Wes, 15 years. You seeing the pattern yet? But here's where it gets really suspicious. Gucci Mane had a specific obsession with signing rappers from Memphis. And not just any Memphis rappers, the most dangerous ones, the ones with the most bodies, the most cases, the most reckless reputations. Big Scar was Pooh Shiesty's blood cousin, and he came from the same trenches. Scar had already survived getting shot in the hip. The bullet traveled through his body and hit his appendix. He'd survived a major car crash in 2016. Homie was a survivor for real. Gucci Mane signed him, and Scar started blowing up. He made the XXL freshman list in 2022, and everything looked like it was going up for him. But here's the thing about street dudes: when they first get money, lil bro, they don't know how to handle it. They've been struggling their whole lives, and suddenly they got hundreds of thousands of dollars. What do? They start buying all kinds of drugs, pills, lean, whatever they can get their hands on. It's a way to cope with the trauma, to celebrate the come-up, to numb the pain of losing homies. But it's also a death sentence. Big Scar had been struggling with drug addiction for a while, and on December 22nd, 2022, just as he was about to go on tour with Key Glock, Scar died from an accidental overdose at his girlfriend's house. He was only 22 years old. The same pattern that killed Lil Peep, Juice WRLD, and Mac Miller got him too. Young dude gets money, buys drugs to cope, accidentally takes too much, and never wakes up. Now here's what's suspicious. When Big Scar died, Gucci Mane posted a tribute on Instagram. But industry insiders started whispering about insurance policies. See, if Gucci Mane had a Keyman insurance policy on Big Scar, which labels typically do on their rising stars, he would have collected when Scar died. We're talking potentially millions of dollars depending on the policy. Gucci Mane gets to look like the grieving mentor on social media, while behind the scenes he's collecting a check that's probably bigger than what he initially invested in Scar's career. But it didn't stop with Big Scar, homie. In 2024, another 1017 artist died the exact same way. Enchanting was a 26-year-old female rapper who signed with Gucci Mane in 2020. She went independent in 2022, but she was still associated with the label. Just like Big Scar, Enchanting had been fighting drug addiction. She went to her friend's house trying to kick the habit, but it didn't work. On June 11, 2024, Enchanting had a heart attack caused by a drug overdose. She died the next day. 2 artists, same label, same cause of death. Drug overdoses, and both of them were young street kids who got a bunch of money for the first time in their lives and didn't know how to handle it. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you look at the bigger picture, it starts to look like a pattern. Now let's talk about the money, because this is where the conspiracy really comes together. In the music industry, there's a practice that most people don't know about called dead peasant insurance or Keyman insurance. It's completely legal and major labels do it all the time, and here's how it works. When a label signs an artist and invests money in them, paying for studio time, music videos, marketing, tour support, they're taking a financial risk. If that artist dies or becomes unable to work, the label loses their investment and all the future revenue that artist would have generated. So to protect themselves, labels take out life insurance policies on their artists. If the artist dies, the label collects the insurance payout. Now, in theory, this makes sense for legitimate business purposes. If you invest $1 million in an artist and they die in a car accident, you need to recoup that investment. But here's where it gets shady, lil bro. What if you specifically sign artists who you know have a high probability of dying or going to jail? What if you target young street dudes with violent criminal histories, gang affiliations, and drug problems? What if you give them just enough money to be valuable but not enough to truly escape the streets? Then you're not just protecting your investment, you're betting on their death. And the math makes sense, homie. Let's say Gucci Mane signs a young rapper for $100,000. He spends another $100,000 on music videos, studio time, and promotion. That's a $200,000 investment. But if he takes out a $2 million life insurance policy on that artist, and that artist dies within a few years, Gucci Mane just made $1.8 million profit. Even if the artist only generates $500,000 in revenue while they're alive, Gucci Mane still comes out way ahead when they die. Now multiply that by multiple artists. Big Scar dies, potential $2 to $3 million insurance payout. Enchanting dies, another $1 to $2 million. Pooh Shiesty goes to jail for over 3 years. Depending on the policy, there might be a disability clause that pays out. Fujiano, Hot Boy West, all locked up, more potential payouts. And here's the really messed up part. When an artist goes to jail, their music often becomes more valuable. They become a legend, a martyr, a symbol. Streams go up, people buy their old albums, their story becomes part of hip-hop folklore. So Gucci Mane profits twice, once from the insurance payout and again from the increased value of their music catalog. But let's talk about why these artists crash out in the first place, because this is where Gucci Mane's alleged scheme becomes really calculated. See, when you take a young dude from the trenches and give him $100,000, something happens psychologically. For the first time in his life, he's got money, real money, not corner money or scam money, but legitimate check from a record label money. And what does he do with it? First, he takes care of his people. He buys his mama a house, helps his homies out, makes sure his family is straight. That's respectable, for real. But then the money starts going to other places. He buys jewelry, expensive chains, watches, grills. He buys cars, Hellcats, Trackhawks, whatever's hot. He buys drugs, pills, lean, weed, whatever helps him cope with the trauma of growing up in the streets. And he keeps the same dangerous homies around, because those are the only people he trusts. But here's the problem, lil bro. That $100,000 goes fast, real fast. Especially when you're buying jewelry that depreciates, cars that depreciate, and drugs that you literally consume. Within 6 months to a year, that money is gone. And now you're in a worse position than before because you've gotten used to having money. You've shown your hood that you made it. You can't go back to being broke. That would be embarrassing. That would make you look like you fumbled the bag. So what do? You go back to what you know. You go back to the streets. You start robbing, scamming, trapping, whatever it takes to get that money back. And that's exactly what happened to Hot Boy West. Homie got signed to 1017, got some money, and when it dried up, he tried to rob a dude over a Rolex. He buys cars, Hellcats, Trackhawks, whatever's hot. He buys drugs, pills, lean, weed, whatever helps him cope with the trauma of growing up in the streets. And he keeps the same dangerous homies around, because those are the only people he trusts. But here's the problem, lil bro. That $100,000 goes fast, real fast. Especially when you're buying jewelry that depreciates, cars that depreciate, and drugs that you literally consume. Within 6 months to a year, that money is gone. And now you're in a worse position than before because you've gotten used to having money. You've shown your hood that you made it. You can't go back to being broke. That would be embarrassing. That would make you look like you fumbled the bag. So what do? You go back to what you know. You go back to the streets. You start robbing, scamming, trapping, whatever it takes to get that money back. And that's exactly what happened to Hot Boy West. Homie got signed to 1017, got some money, and when it dried up, he tried to rob a dude over a Rolex. That's textbook crash out behavior. Same thing with Lil Rai. Gucci Mane signed him, flew him out to New York, gave him a deal. Lil Rai started beefing with NBA YoungBoy on social media, talking reckless, acting tough. Then some goons caught him in an Atlanta mall and robbed him on camera. They stripped him, took his chain, humiliated him in front of the whole internet. Why? Because Lil Rai was moving reckless, talking crazy online, and didn't have the muscle to back it up. He was a young street dude with a little bit of money and a lot of ego, a dangerous combination. And here's what's really calculated about Gucci Mane's alleged scheme. He knows this cycle. He lived it himself. Gucci Mane was in and out of jail for years before he finally got his life together. He knows exactly what happens when you give a young street dude money without the wisdom to manage it. He knows they're gonna crash out. And if you're a cold-blooded businessman looking to maximize profit, you don't try to stop the crash. You insure against it and profit from it. But this isn't even the first time Gucci Mane's label has been cursed. Let's go back to the beginning, because the pattern started way before the new 1017. In 2007, Gucci Mane started his first label, So Icy Entertainment. He signed Waka Flocka Flame, OJ Da Juiceman, and Frenchie. Everything was going good at first, but then the curse started. Gucci Mane had beef with Waka Flocka's mama, who was also his manager. There were accusations of stolen money, shady business deals, and the whole label fell apart. Then in 2010, Gucci Mane started 1017 Brick Squad. He signed Slim Duncan, and in 2011, Slim Duncan was at a studio in Atlanta about to shoot a music video for Gucci Mane's track Push Ups. Another rapper named Young Vito was there, and they got into some kind of beef. Young Vito pulled out his strap and killed Slim Duncan right there in the studio. That's the first death directly connected to Gucci Mane's label homie. OJ Da Juiceman, who came up in the same apartment building as Gucci Mane, started falling off after signing to Brick Squad. He got into a Twitter beef with Gucci Mane, and his career never recovered. Then in 2022, OJ got booked on gun and drug charges. In March 2024, he got arrested again. This time for cocaine, other drugs, and a gun. OJ has been sitting in jail ever since, and it doesn't look like he's coming home anytime soon. Frenchie, who's Waka Flocka's cousin, also got hit with the curse. After beefing with Gucci Mane and leaving the label, Frenchie's career fell off. In 2021, he barely survived getting shot in the neck. Then in 2023, he got wrapped up in a home invasion case where he and some other dudes broke into a family's house looking for weed, pistol-whipped an autistic teenager, and didn't even find any weed. Frenchie got hit with a 12-year sentence. So let's count it up. From the original Brick Squad era, Slim Duncan dead, OJ Da Juiceman locked up, Frenchie doing 12 years. That's 3 artists down before the new 1017 even started. After Brick Squad fell apart, Gucci Mane tried again with 1017 Eskimo Records in 2016. He signed Rallo, Hoodrich Pablo Juan, Asian Doll, and Lil Wop, and guess what happened? The curse continued. Rallo was the first one to sign. Gucci Mane gave him a verse for free, brought him to the studio, and made him the face of the new label. But Rallo couldn't leave the streets alone. Homie got caught with almost 1,000 pounds of weed on a private jet. The feds took everything, his properties, his jewelry, all of it. Then while he was locked up, Rallo got caught trying to make drug deals from behind bars. He got hit with an 8-year sentence in 2022. That's 1 artist down. Hoodrich Pablo Juan was next. Pablo was buzzing with tracks like We Don't Love Him, and it looked like he was about to blow up. But then he started taking L's. He allegedly got beat up, robbed, and stripped naked at a studio. Then he got his chain snatched while trying to squash someone else's beef. Gucci Mane ended up dropping him from the label. Then in October 2020, Pablo got hit with a RICO case. The feds claimed he was a member of the Rollin' 20 Neighborhood Bloods and named him in an indictment with 45 other alleged gang members. Pablo took a plea deal for 5 years in prison and 10 years of probation. That's 2 artists down. Asian Doll was the first woman Gucci Mane ever signed. She had been independent and dropping mixtapes regularly, but after signing to 1017, everything slowed down. The label wanted to control when she dropped music, and Asian Doll wasn't feeling it. She asked Gucci Mane to let her out of the deal, and he did, but the curse still got her. Right after leaving the label, Asian Doll got picked up on drug charges in Georgia. Then in 2022, she got arrested again for not showing up to court and for speeding without a license. Her career fell off after that, and her new music doesn't make any noise anymore. That's 3 artists down. Lil Wop was another artist who got hit with the curse. Homie was inspired by Gucci Mane so much that he named himself after Gucci's nickname Guwop, and even got an ice cream cone tattooed on his face. But after signing to 1017, Lil Wop's career went nowhere. He started complaining that the label wasn't doing anything to help him, and he left in 2018. After that, his music career died completely. He started doing OnlyFans and came out as bisexual on Twitter. In 2022, Lil Wop called Gucci Mane a weirdo and said he wanted nothing to do with 1017 anymore. So from the 1017 Eskimo era, Rallo locked up for 8 years, Hoodrich Pablo Juan locked up for 5 years, Asian Doll's career dead, Lil Wop's career dead. That's 4 more artists down. But the new 1017 era is where things got really dark. This is where the conspiracy theory really takes shape, because the pattern becomes undeniable. When Gucci Mane relaunched as the new 1017 in 2020, he specifically targeted Memphis. And not just any Memphis rappers, the most dangerous ones. Mac Critter, Kato 2X, FTO Set, Big Fizzle. all from Memphis, all with violent criminal histories, all signed to 1017. Mac Critter was one of the hardest working rappers in Memphis, dropping almost 20 mixtapes in 2021 and 2022. Gucci Mane signed him in October 2022, and it looked like Mac Critter was about to blow up. But just 2 months later, in December 2022, a dude named Markeith Taylor was killed in an empty parking lot in Memphis. According to the police report, Mac Critter and 3 of his homies were sitting in an SUV. They told Markeith to get out of his car and come over to them, and that's when they pulled out their straps and started shooting. A couple hours later, another dude related to Markeith was shot to death in the same area. The cops think the 2 shootings are linked. Mac Critter is still signed to 1017, but he's facing murder charges and might never be free again. That's one Memphis artist down. Kato 2X is another Memphis rapper who signed to 1017. Before he started rapping, Kato was allegedly heavy in the streets, repping a crew called Rich and Ruthless. He already had a first-degree murder charge from 2017 and an assault charge from 2019. But Gucci Mane signed him anyway, probably knowing exactly what he was getting into. In September 2023, Lil Baby was doing a show at the FedEx Forum in Memphis. Kato 2X and his blood brother, a rapper named CEO Jizzle, were at the show. Somebody started letting off shots and the show got cut short. CEO Jizzle got hit and the cops think Kato is the one who shot him. Now, if Kato did shoot Jizzle, it was probably an accident. They're blood brothers and have been making music together for years. Rumors say Kato was trying to shoot an op and Jizzle got caught by a stray bullet. But here's the crazy part. When the cops arrested Kato, they found out he was already on bond for 3 different felony cases, including that murder charge from 2017. Kato 2X is still signed to 1017, but he's locked up and probably won't be coming home for a long time. That's 2 Memphis artists down. FTO Set was another Memphis rapper Gucci Mane signed. Gucci Mane told Set that he saw potential in him and wanted him to get out of the streets. But in February 2024, FTO Set got arrested because his bond on an old case was revoked. Back in 2022, Set had been arrested for running from the cops, having a stolen gun, a Glock with a switch on it, and weed. It looks like FTO Set bonded out again and is free now, but he's still facing serious charges. That's 3 Memphis artists in legal trouble. Big Fizzle was from Arkansas, not Memphis, but he fit the same profile. He was still in high school playing football when Gucci Mane signed him in 2021. For a couple years, Big Fizzle stayed out of trouble and was racking up huge numbers. He had features from Quavo and even had a track on the Fast and Furious soundtrack. But in 2024, Big Fizzle got arrested for gun and drug charges. The curse got him too, homie. So let's break down the alleged business model, because when you look at all the pieces together, it starts to look less like bad luck and more like a calculated scheme. Step 1. Identify young rappers from the streets with violent criminal histories. Gucci Mane specifically targeted dudes with murder charges, gang affiliations, and a history of reckless behavior. These aren't stable artists trying to build long-term careers. These are crash-outs who are likely to end up dead or in jail within a few years. Step 2. Sign them for relatively small amounts of money. Most of Gucci Mane's deals were reportedly in the $100,000 to $500,000 range. That's enough to get a young street dude excited, but not enough to truly change their life or get them out of the hood. Step 3. Take out life insurance policies on them. This is standard industry practice, but when you're specifically signing high-risk artists, it becomes something else. If Gucci Mane took out $2 to $3 million policies on each artist, he's essentially betting on their death or incarceration. Step 4. Invest just enough to make them valuable. Gucci Mane would pay for a few music videos, get them some features, build up their streaming numbers, just enough to make them worth something, but not enough to truly blow them up to superstar status. Step 5. Wait for the inevitable crash. And this is where the scheme becomes really cold-blooded. Gucci Mane knows these young dudes are gonna crash out. He knows they're gonna buy drugs, keep dangerous homies around, flash money on social media, and eventually end up dead or locked up. He doesn't have to do anything, he just has to wait. Step 6. Collect the insurance payout. When Big Scar dies from a drug overdose, Gucci Mane collects. When Enchanting dies from a drug overdose, Gucci Mane collects. When Pooh Shiesty goes to jail for over 3 years, depending on the policy, Gucci Mane might collect. Every artist that crashes out is a potential payday. Step 7. Profit from their increased value. When an artist dies or goes to jail, their music often becomes more valuable. Streams go up, people want to hear their story, they become a legend. So Gucci Mane profits twice, once from the insurance and again from the increased catalog value. And here's the really messed up part, lil bro. Gucci Mane gets to look like the good guy through all of this. He gets to post tributes on Instagram when his artists die. He gets to say he was trying to help young dudes get out of the streets. He gets to act like he's a mentor and a father figure. But behind the scenes, he's allegedly collecting checks every time one of his artists crashes out. But eventually, people started noticing the pattern. Fans on social media started calling it the 1017 curse. Every time another artist got locked up or died, people would comment about how Gucci Mane's label was cursed. The conspiracy theories started spreading. When Enchanting died in June 2024, that's when things really blew up. People started asking questions. How is it possible that so many artists from one label end up dead or in jail? Why does Gucci Mane keep signing the most reckless, most dangerous rappers in the game? Why doesn't he do more to help them stay out of trouble? Gucci Mane's wife, Keisha Kawar, jumped on social media to defend him. She said people were being disrespectful and that Gucci Mane was just trying to help young artists. But the questions didn't stop. People started digging deeper, asking about insurance policies, asking about the money. Gucci Mane himself addressed it in an interview with Charlemagne the God. He said he signs artists who remind him of himself, young dudes from the streets who are going back and forth to jail. He said if he doesn't help them, who will? And on the surface, that sounds noble for real, but when you look at the pattern, when you see how many of his artists end up dead or locked up, when you think about the potential insurance payouts, it starts to look different. And here's where it gets really suspicious, homie. Right around the time people started catching on to the pattern, right when the conspiracy theories were spreading and people were asking questions about the 1017 curse, Gucci Mane made a major move. He dropped almost all of his artists and announced he was starting fresh with a new roster. In 2023 and 2024, Gucci Mane quietly dropped or distanced himself from most of the new 1017 artists. Mac Critter, Kato 2X, FTO Set, Big Fizzle, Lil Rai, all of them either got dropped or their relationship with the label became unclear. The only artists Gucci Mane kept were the ones who were already locked up and couldn't cause any more problems. Then Gucci Mane started talking about launching a completely new label with a completely new roster. He even posted on social media offering $1 million to his next superstar, showing stacks of cash and talking about fresh starts. But here's the thing, look at the comments on that post. People were saying, I would sign with an imaginary pencil. The label is cursed. The minute you sign, the back page has your death date on it. People had caught on. The conspiracy theory had spread too far. So Gucci Mane had to rebrand, start fresh, distance himself from the curse. But the pattern was already established, and people weren't forgetting. Now let's talk about what industry insiders have said about this, because this isn't just fan speculation. People who work in the music business have confirmed that Keyman insurance is real and that labels use it all the time. A former A&R executive who spoke anonymously said that major labels routinely take out life insurance policies on their artists, especially young artists who are considered high risk. The policies can range from $1 million to $10 million, depending on the artist's potential value. And here's the key part. The label is the beneficiary, not the artist's family. When the artist dies, the label collects the full payout. Another music industry lawyer said that these policies are completely legal and are considered a standard business practice. But he also said that there's a moral gray area when labels specifically sign high-risk artists knowing they're likely to die or go to jail. At that point, he said it stops being insurance and starts being speculation, betting on someone's death. And here's what makes Gucci Mane's situation different from other labels, homie. Most major labels sign a mix of artists, some stable, some risky, some in between. But Gucci Mane specifically targeted the most reckless, most dangerous young rappers in the game. He passed over more stable artists to sign dudes with active murder cases and gang affiliations. That's not diversifying your risk, that's concentrating it. And when you concentrate risk while having insurance policies in place, it starts to look like you're betting on the worst-case scenario. Let's talk about the actual money, because the numbers tell a story. When Big Scar died in December 2022, his streaming numbers exploded. In the week after his death, his Spotify streams increased by over 300%. His most popular tracks were getting millions of plays and people were buying his merchandise. If Gucci Mane owned the masters to Big Scar's music, which he likely did as part of the record deal, he was collecting all of that revenue. Plus, if there was a life insurance policy, that's potentially another $2 to $3 million. Same thing with Enchanting. When she died in June 2024, her streaming numbers spiked. People wanted to hear her music, wanted to understand her story. Even though she had gone independent in 2022, she was still associated with 1017, and Gucci Mane likely still owns some of her catalog. More streams, more money, and it's not just the dead artists. When Pooh Shiesty got locked up in 2021, his music became even more popular. Back in Blood is still getting millions of streams, and Pooh Shiesty's name is still buzzing in the streets. He just got released in 2024 after serving over 3 years, but during that time, Gucci Mane was collecting on all those streams. Pooh Shiesty became a legend, a symbol of what happens when you can't leave the streets alone, and Gucci Mane was profiting from it the entire time. Industry analysts estimate that Gucci Mane has made somewhere between $10 to $20 million from the new 1017 era alone. That includes music sales, streaming revenue, touring before the artist got locked up, merchandise, and potentially insurance payouts. And here's the crazy part. Homie, his initial investment was probably only $2 to $3 million total across all the artists. That's a 500 to 700% return on investment in just 4 years. Compare that to a traditional label model where you sign stable artists, invest in their long-term careers, and hope they become superstars over a decade. That's a much slower, much riskier path to profit. But if you sign crash outs, insure them, and wait for the inevitable, you can make your money back in just a few years. But there's another layer to this alleged scheme that's even more sinister. It's not just about signing crash outs and waiting for them to crash. It's about the psychological manipulation that keeps them crashing. Think about it. When you sign a young street dude to a record deal, you're not just giving him money, you're giving him validation. You're telling him that his lifestyle, his music, his street credibility is valuable. You're rewarding him for being dangerous, for being reckless, for being a crash out. And then what happens? You put him in music videos with guns, drugs, and violence. You encourage him to rap about his criminal past, about bodies he's caught, about ops he's beefing with. You build his brand around being dangerous. And the more dangerous he is, the more authentic he seems, the more his music sells. But here's the problem, lil bro. When you build someone's brand around being a crash out, you're incentivizing them to keep crashing out. If Pooh Shiesty had signed to 1017 and then started rapping about going to therapy, getting his life together, and leaving the streets alone, would his music have been as popular? Probably not. Fans want authenticity, and in street rap, authenticity means staying dangerous. So Gucci Mane creates a situation where his artists are financially rewarded for staying in the streets. The more reckless they are, the more their music sells. But the more reckless they are, the more likely they are to end up dead or in jail. And when they end up dead or in jail, Gucci Mane collects the insurance payout and profits from their increased catalog value. It's a vicious cycle, and the artists don't even realize they're trapped in it until it's too late. Now, to be fair, there are arguments against this conspiracy theory. Let's look at the other side. First, Gucci Mane himself has addressed the curse multiple times. He said that he signs artists who remind him of himself, young dudes from the streets who are struggling and need a chance. He said that if he doesn't help them, nobody will. And there's some truth to that, homie. A lot of these artists wouldn't have gotten deals from major labels because they're too risky. Gucci Mane gave them an opportunity they wouldn't have had otherwise. Second, you could argue that Gucci Mane can't control what his artists do. He can give them money, give them a platform, give them advice, but at the end of the day, they're grown men making their own decisions. If Pooh Shiesty decides to rob somebody over some shoes, that's on Pooh Shiesty, not Gucci Mane. If Big Scar decides to take too many pills, that's on Big Scar, not Gucci Mane. Third, the insurance policy argument is speculative. We don't have proof that Gucci Mane took out life insurance policies on his artists. And even if he did, that's standard industry practice. Every major label does it, so why is Gucci Mane being singled out? And fourth, you could argue that the curse is just a statistical inevitability. If you sign 10 young rappers from the streets with violent criminal histories, it's not surprising that most of them end up dead or in jail. That's not a curse. That's just probability. Gucci Mane isn't causing these outcomes. He's just signing artists who are already on that path. These are all valid points, and it's important to consider them before jumping to conclusions. But here's the thing, even if you give Gucci Mane the benefit of the doubt on every individual case, the pattern is still undeniable. That's over 20 artists across 3 different label iterations, and almost all of them ended up dead, locked up, or with their careers destroyed. At what point does it stop being coincidence and start being a pattern? And here's what really seals it for me. When people started catching on, when the conspiracy theories started spreading, Gucci Mane didn't double down. He didn't defend his roster or stand by his artists. He dropped almost all of them and started talking about launching a completely new label. That's not the behavior of someone who's innocent. That's the behavior of someone who knows the optics look bad and needs to rebrand. But let's zoom out for a second, because this isn't just about Gucci Mane. This is about how the music industry exploits young black men from the streets. Think about it, homie. The industry loves street rappers because they're authentic, they're marketable, and they're profitable. Fans want to hear real stories about real struggle, and street rappers provide that. But the industry doesn't actually care about helping these young dudes escape the streets. They care about profiting from their pain. So what do? They sign young street rappers, encourage them to keep making violent music, build their brand around being dangerous, and then act surprised when they end up dead or in jail. It's exploitation, plain and simple. And the insurance policy angle makes it even worse. If labels are taking out life insurance policies on young black men from the streets, knowing that they're likely to die young, that's not just exploitation. That's betting on black death. That's profiting from the cycle of violence that these communities are trapped in. Gucci Mane might be the most visible example of this, but he's not the only one. Other labels do the same thing. They sign young street rappers, profit from their music, and then move on to the next one when they crash out. It's a revolving door of exploitation, and nobody talks about it because it's so normalized in the industry. Now let's talk about some of the wilder conspiracy theories that have been floating around, because some people think this goes even deeper than just insurance policies. Some fans have speculated that Gucci Mane is part of a larger industry conspiracy to keep young black men trapped in cycles of violence and incarceration. They point to his transformation after he got out of prison in 2016, how he lost weight, got in shape, and started moving differently. Some people think he made a deal with industry executives or even government agencies to help identify and sign the most dangerous young rappers, essentially marking them for the system. Others have pointed to Gucci Mane's connections to the private prison industry. Georgia, where Gucci Mane is based, has one of the largest private prison systems in the country. Private prisons profit from incarceration, and they need a steady supply of inmates to stay profitable. Some conspiracy theorists claim that there's a pipeline from the music industry to the prison industry, and that labels like 1017 are part of that pipeline. Now, I'm not saying I believe all of this. These are conspiracy theories, and they're not backed up by hard evidence. But they're worth mentioning because they show how deep the distrust goes. People don't just think Gucci Mane is profiting from his artists' deaths. Some people think he's actively working with larger systems to ensure those deaths happen. And here's what makes these theories stick, homie. The pattern is so consistent, so undeniable, that it's hard to believe it's just coincidence. When you see the same outcome over and over again, young street rappers signing to 1017 and ending up dead or locked up, it starts to look intentional. So what has Gucci Mane said about all of this? How has he responded to the conspiracy theories and the accusations? For the most part, Gucci Mane has stayed quiet. He posts tributes when his artists die. He says he's trying to help young dudes from the streets, but he doesn't directly address the insurance policy allegations or the pattern of deaths and incarcerations. In that interview with Charlemagne the God, Gucci Mane said, "To be honest, I was one of those types of artists. I was always going back and forth to jail. I tried to help those artists I feel like I see a lot of myself in. So with that being said, I try to ride it out with them through them little bumps or whatever they're going through, but I feel like if I'm not helping them, who else is going to help them?" On the surface, that sounds noble. But when you look at the results, when you see how many of his artists end up dead or locked up, it starts to ring hollow. If Gucci Mane is really trying to help these young dudes, why does he keep signing the most reckless ones? Why doesn't he provide them with financial advisors, security, mental health support? Why doesn't he do more to actually help them escape the streets instead of just giving them money and a record deal? The truth is, Gucci Mane benefits from his artists staying in the streets. The more dangerous they are, the more authentic their music is, the more it sells. And if they crash out, he's allegedly protected by insurance policies, so there's no financial incentive for him to actually help them change their lives. As of late 2024 and early 2025, the 1017 curse is still going strong. Even after Gucci Mane tried to rebrand and start fresh, the pattern continues. Pooh Shiesty was released from prison in 2025 after serving over 3 years of his 5-year sentence. He's back home now, and fans are waiting to see if he'll return to music or if he'll crash out again. The fact that he got out early is actually a good sign. It means he stayed out of trouble while locked up. But the real test will be what he does now that he's free. Enchanting's death in June 2024 was the most recent tragedy connected to the label. Her passing sparked a new wave of conspiracy theories and questions about the 1017 curse. People started asking why so many of Gucci Mane's artists die from drug overdoses specifically, and whether the label does anything to help artists struggling with addiction. FTO Set appears to be free now after his bond issues, but he's still facing serious charges. Big Fizzle is also dealing with legal troubles from his 2024 arrest. Mac Critter and Kato 2X are still locked up facing major charges that could keep them behind bars for decades. And here's what's really wild, homie. Gucci Mane is still trying to sign new artists. He's still posting on social media about finding the next superstar, still offering money to young rappers from the streets. Despite everything that's happened, despite all the deaths and incarcerations, despite the conspiracy theories and the bad publicity, Gucci Mane is still running the same playbook. That tells you everything you need to know. If the 1017 curse was really just bad luck, if Gucci Mane was really just trying to help young artists and it kept going wrong, you'd think he would change his approach. You'd think he would start signing more stable artists or providing more support or doing something different. But he's not. He's still targeting the same type of artists. Young, reckless, from the streets, with violent criminal histories. Why? Because the model works. Whether it's through insurance payouts, increased catalog value, or just the publicity that comes from having controversial artists, Gucci Mane is making money. And as long as he's making money, he has no reason to change. So let's bring it all together. What have we learned about Gucci Mane and the 1017 curse? We've learned that over the course of 3 different label iterations spanning nearly 20 years, Gucci Mane has signed over 20 artists, and almost all of them have ended up dead, locked up, or with their careers destroyed. We've learned that Gucci Mane specifically targets young rappers from the streets with violent criminal histories, the exact type of artists who are most likely to crash out. We've learned that the music industry uses life insurance policies on artists as a standard business practice, and that these policies can be worth millions of dollars. We've learned that when an artist dies or goes to jail, their music often becomes more valuable, creating a perverse incentive for labels to profit from their artist's downfall. We've learned that street rappers often crash out when they first get money because they don't know how to manage it, they buy drugs to cope with trauma, and they keep dangerous people around them. And we've learned that when the money dries up, they often go back to the streets to get it back, leading to robberies, violence, and more legal trouble. We've learned that people have started catching on to the pattern, calling it the 1017 curse, and speculating about insurance schemes and industry exploitation. And we've learned that right when the conspiracy theories started spreading, Gucci Mane dropped most of his artists and started talking about launching a new label. When you put all of these pieces together, it's hard not to see a pattern. It's hard not to wonder if Gucci Mane has been running a calculated business model where he signs high-risk artists, insures them, waits for them to crash out, and then profits from their deaths or incarcerations. Now, is this definitely what's happening? We don't have hard proof of insurance policies or explicit evidence of a scheme. Everything I've laid out today is based on patterns, industry practices, and circumstantial evidence. It's possible that this is all just a series of tragic coincidences. It's possible that Gucci Mane really is just trying to help young artists and it keeps going wrong. But the pattern is undeniable, homie. And when you see the same outcome over and over again, young street rappers signing to 1017 and ending up dead or locked up, it starts to look less like coincidence and more like a business model. At the end of the day, whether this is a calculated scheme or just a tragic pattern, the result is the same. Young black men from the streets are being exploited by the music industry. They're being signed, profited from, and then discarded when they crash out, and nobody in the industry seems to care enough to change it. So what's the lesson here? If you're a young rapper from the streets and Gucci Mane comes calling with a record deal, think twice. Look at the pattern. Look at what happened to Big Scar, Enchanting, Pooh Shiesty, Fugiano, Hot Boy West, and all the others. Ask yourself if that's the path you want to go down. And if you're a fan, pay attention to how the industry operates. Don't just consume the music. Think about the systems that produce it and the people who profit from it. Because behind every street rapper's story is a label executive counting money. And sometimes that money comes from the darkest places. This has been the untold story of how Gucci Mane allegedly made millions from signing and insuring crash-out rappers. Whether it's a conspiracy or just a tragic pattern, the 1017 curse is real, and it's still claiming victims. Now, before we end this, I gotta say one more time. Everything I've talked about today is speculation and conspiracy theory. We don't have definitive proof that Gucci Mane took out insurance policies on his artists or that he intentionally profited from their deaths. It's possible that this is all just a series of unfortunate coincidences and that Gucci Mane really was just trying to help young artists who kept making bad decisions. But the pattern is there, and patterns don't lie. If you made it this far, drop a comment and let me know what you think. Is the 1017 curse real, or is it just bad luck? Is Gucci Mane a calculated businessman profiting from death? Or is he a misunderstood mentor trying to help the streets? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more deep dives like this, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're going to keep exposing the truth about the music industry. Stay safe out there, and if a label comes calling, make sure you read the fine print, especially the part about life insurance. Peace.